Good day, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I'm Sue Johnston, retired counselor, mom, and wife. Can't forget that one. This video, I have a tutorial for you on knitting up a very quick knit bootie. And if you don't have babies to knit for, that's fine. I have a cousin who's having her first grandchild. Well, her daughter's having the grandchild, not her. um, and so I knit some booties for her. And the thing about this little project is it's very quick, and you can dress up the booties and hang them on a tree. Like if you decide to use it for a Christmas decoration, you can knit them in red and green and so forth. So I've given some examples that I'll show at the end where I've dressed it up with just a little bit of greenery. Ideally, I needed some more Christmassy greenery, but I think I gotta wait a few months from now to get that. So anyway, let me know what you think of this, and if you try it and it works out for you, I can knit one up in maybe about 20 minutes. But if you're a beginner knitter, it might take a little bit longer. But the point is, don't rush it, just enjoy it. Here's a sample of the first bootie I knit up. Basically, you knit up a square 3 inches by 3 inches, fold it in half, knit up the toe, knit up the back piece, and what I do is I crochet the edging on the top. So this is it. This is a square. You just 3 inches by 3 inches. So you use whatever wool, whatever needles are going to give you that tension so that you can get 3 inches. And it has to be square. It's just a good measurement for a very small foot. After you've knit your 3-inch square, you want to go in and knit one, knit two together, turn the row, knit one, knit two together, and then I use a darning needle, and you pull it through the remaining stitches. And you fold it in half, and you stitch those up so that that's the toe. So you just pull it nice and tight so that it closes in that toe piece. And then you stitch up the heel, and that's it in a nutshell. Easy peasy, as they say. Now, what I do, because, I mean, they look cute at that stage, that point, but then I take a crochet hook and I crochet in around the edge of the little bootie just to finish the top edge properly. Sometimes I do 1 or 2 rows, sometimes I do maybe 4 or 5 rows just to bring it up. And what you can do then is you can actually weave in a little ribbon around it so that you can tie them on. Because if you have had any experienced booties, you know, they come off. So, but they look cute and they're nice to give as gifts when you're attending a baby shower. That was my model. That little baby doll is about the size of a newborn. So the other thing you can do, as I mentioned, is you can knit them up in red or green colors or gold, silver, and you can decorate them and use them to hang on a Christmas tree. It's kind of fun to do that if it was your grandchild's first Christmas, let's say. You could give it as a gift or just keep it in your own home as a memento. Use whatever wool you have on hand and whatever size needles you prefer to work with. In this situation, I'm using a 6 US American 4mm. And I can't even remember what the wool is, but this is called a DK or a worsted wool. I can't remember. You know, honestly, this was some inexpensive wool I picked up at the dollar store. It was Lion brand, but it was cheap, easy to get. So use the long tail method for casting on, and there's a lot of videos out there, but if you watch carefully, you can see how I do sort of a V shape on my fingers and just wind the wool in around. Oops, made a mistake. Off you go. And you just cast on about 14 stitches depending on your wool. In this situation, I actually had to go back and cast on 17 just to make it so that it would fit into that 3 by 3 measurement. So you cast those on, and then you will knit that row, and basically it's just garter stitch, knitting each row back and forth, and I knit, depending on your wool and thickness and the needles you're using, you can knit about 24 to 28 rows, just garter stitch back and forth. So That's pretty easy, isn't it? Just remember, you still want to have that 3 inches by 3 inches measurement. And then you can do the last 2 rows, which is a series of knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together. You do that across the row. And then you turn your work and you do that again. Knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together to the end of the row. When you've done that, you've actually decreased the stitches on your needle. You want to cut your yarn and take a darning needle. I use a darning needle because I like to weave it in the threads of the wool. So you take your darning needle and you just sew it through the remaining stitches. So that's how you remove the stitches off your needle. You don't have to do a bind off or anything like that. Just put your thread through it and pull it. And pull it tight, and that is your toe, which you're closing up. And you're going to sew that together and sew a few stitches across the top. Sometimes I've counted it, it's about 10 to 12 stitches. And I just do, I think it's called a kitchen stitch. You just go weaving it back and forth. That might not be the kitchen stitch. I'm still new at a lot of this too. So I don't always know what my terms are, but it really doesn't matter. You can stitch it up any way you want. Now this wool is particularly difficult because it's a synthetic, and it just sometimes doesn't cooperate with the needle. It wants to really hold on to that needle and grip it. So you just give it a little bit of tugging and it'll work. Some wool is easier to work with than others. This was nice to knit up, this Lion brand wool, but it wasn't all that fun to sew. So then usually what I do is I bring my needle back through the strands, and you can see the difficulty trying to get it through. Oh, just a bit of wiggling and then we get there. Keep it going. And then I just bring it back in the other direction. And usually that's enough to secure it so that there isn't an ending coming free. And you have to remember there's not too much wear and tear that goes on with baby booties. It's not like a man wearing socks and going through on the heel. So you just weave it through and end it and cut your thread. Again, you take your darning needle and some of the yarn and you sew up the heel part. And you see that there's a tail left from my cast on stitches. Sometimes I just sort of weave that in there. Sometimes I put it onto the needle and I just pull it through, because the stitches I'm using with the other strand of yarn will hold it all in place. There's that difficulty with that yarn again, but we do manage it. So here I am working on that last little bit of the heel, and instead of just folding it completely flat and then stitching it and ending up with a little point right on the end, what I do is I weave in around the end of the heel there. You'll see that in a moment. You see how I go to the end and I just kind of poke it up through there so that it's not a pointy end, so there's a little bit of roundness to that edge of the heel. That's something that comes with time doing it. You get a bit of skill. You develop your own techniques on putting things together. Here's my model again. We're going to just try it on, see how it goes. Slips on nice. You see how I think there needs to be just a little bit more of an edge there up on the ankle area. And that's one reason why I decided to crochet around the edge. So I'm using a 3.50 crochet hook. And I just do a single crochet around the edges. And that little bit of tail there, I just kind of weave it in. I crochet over top of it. So it just gets woven into the little bootie. Single crochet. And I just put the needle in between each knitting row. Again, it's just something you get a feel for. Whenever you're knitting or crocheting, you gradually develop your own tension, which hopefully becomes even. Sometimes it's not even when you're beginning, but gradually that happens. And you get a feel for things. Like I'm just kind of feeling where that hook needs to go in between the knitting rows. And there you are. I've just tied a strand of the yarn to hold the two booties together. A little bow up there so you can hang them up. Just dress it up with a bit of greenery, hopefully to complement the yarn that you've knit your bootie with. So as I mentioned, these are good. They do fit on baby's feet. You might want to weave a bit of ribbon in around so that you can tie it on. But mostly they're just cute to look at. I will be hanging these two on my tree at Christmas time. For me, it'll be reminiscent of daughters that were born, grandkids that are born. Our youngest grandchild is now just coming up to a year. The oldest is 28. Happy knitting, everybody.